Colorado traveling out to Pullman to take on the Washington State Cougars. The forecast doesn't sound great, but not quite as bad as the last time these Buffs were out there in Pullman.
No, it was pretty miserable out there 2 years ago. Chilly, rainy, windy, and it was just, all game long the wind was whipping around, and it was pretty miserable. And, Stephen Montez is looking forward to it. I know he was reminded or he was told today it might be rainy and windy this week, and he said, "Lovely, can't wait." He was miserable that game. That was
probably his worst performance as a Buff, right? I know last week wasn't great, but
worst start for sure. Michigan might be the worst performance, but hard to really pin that on
George
him.
Frazier catches that ball, maybe it goes differently.
I agree with you, but yeah, I think worst start for sure out there. He gets pulled at halftime, 4 for 13. As long as pass was 9 yards. That was a bad game all in all. Sam Noyer didn't do much better when he got in there. Casey Marksberry got in that game and didn't
That's
do much
all
better.
you need to know about that game.
Casey Marksberry played quarterback in that game. So, yes, that tells you about that game. It's been miserable the last 2 times in Pullman. And, it doesn't look like the weather's going to be great, but that's Pullman.
Washington State 3-0 to starts, but three in a row they've lost now. The only team in the Pac-12 that doesn't have a Pac-12 win at this point, and their defense has been just brutal the last 3 weeks, averaging, giving up 48 points a game the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, and obviously that's a little skewed because 67 of those came in one game against Washington or against UCLA, 50 of those in 19 minutes. So, but yeah, and they came back. I think the last 2 weeks have been 38 points each week that they've given up, and yeah, they're not playing very good defense, but neither are the Buffs. These are arguably the 2 worst defensive teams in the conference playing this week. So, it makes you want to take the over. I don't know what the over/under is, but
72, believe it or not.
Okay, so it almost makes you want to take that over. But they're not playing good defense. But Mike Leach came away from that game the other day feeling like it was a step in the right direction, which. That's how things are for Washington State right now. That he can come out of a loss saying, "Yeah, this was a positive."
Their quarterback is not quite as talented as we've seen with Gardner Minshew and Luke Falk before him.
Yeah.
Anthony Gordon, more kind of a product of the system, but even as a product of the system, he's averaging 167 more passing yards than any other player in the conference. It's pretty incredible what Mike Leach does year in and year out with those guys.
It is pretty incredible, and this was a kid that wasn't really supposed to be the starter. I shouldn't say wasn't supposed to be, but they brought in another grad transfer that everybody thought. I can't remember the kid's name, Gage Gabrut, I think. They brought him in. Everybody thought, well, he was going to be the next Gardner Minshew and take over. But Anthony Gordon had been there. He's been there his whole career and wins the job. So this has been a career backup that he's now leading the country in passing. And, over 420 yards passing 5 times out of 6 games. And it's, I would say he's a product of the system, but he's run the system really well.
Winston's their top receiver. He has 9 touchdown catches, but they've got a lot of options there. There are 7 Washington State receivers that are averaging at least 40 receiving yards per game. Again, it's just incredible what that system does.
Yeah, it is. And they like – I was watching Mike Leach's press conference from the other day, and he was asked about balance. They're throwing the ball 76% of the time. So you don't look at balance like that, but he said – balance to him has nothing to do with run pass. It's ball distribution, and it's is the X and the Z. They all get in the ball, and you look at their passing stats, and there is pretty good balance as to who gets the ball, and so that's how he looks at balance. It's not run pass, because clearly when you run the ball only 24% of the time, that's not good balance.
Yeah, he has a funny quote out there that 50% pass, 50% run is 50% wrong, or 50% stupid, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's Leach is always great for those comments. At times, though, he comes off as a little bit of a bully. He's kept his players off social media this year. He's always great for a quote, but I'm glad I don't have to be on his beat day in and day out.
Yeah, and actually this year it's a new thing. It's like the last week or two that he's kept him off social media. He says he wishes he would have done it at the start of the year. But he seems like a guy that it's fun to watch him from afar and say, he makes some funny comments, but man, day in, day out, I'm not sure that would be very fun covering him. I just think you never know what kind of question is going to set him off and maybe put you on going viral on Twitter with your questions. So who knows? It'd be interesting to cover him for sure.
Before we get into our prediction, we should talk about Max Borhe. Obviously, from Arvada was committed to the Buffs at one point. Kind of complicated recruiting process. He ends up at Washington State. I will say, CU fans don't want to hear this, but he made the right decision for him and his skill set as a player. That offense fits him perfectly.
It really does, and he's awesome in that offense. And you talk about the run game; they don't run the ball a ton, but they use the passes to him as kind of a run, and he's phenomenal. He does a great job with it. They've had some good running backs over the years that have caught the ball a lot of passes, but he might be the best that I've seen in a while over there. And just a sophomore, he's got some time left there, and Mel Tucker had a lot of nice things to say about him. Obviously, Mel and his staff didn't recruit Max, but said, hey, he's a really good player. He's a guy that's a handful, and Max scored here last year, so he's going to want to do well this Saturday night.
Not going to be perfect weather out there, but I think we both agree there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. How do you see it shaking out on Saturday?
Well, we were talking before this. I don't have a great feel about this game, so I'm going to go the optimistic route here, and against maybe a lot of logic, I'm going to go with the Buffs winning this football game, and there's not a whole lot of reason for me to do that. I mean, you look at on paper, you'd think that Anthony Gordon's going to throw for about 800 yards against this Colorado defense, but I think Colorado's defense, they're going to give up some things, but I think their offense can score a lot of points too. And we've seen this team go down to Arizona State and win a game. We've seen them come here and win against Nebraska. They win some games they're not supposed to win, and I think that Mel Tucker's going to have this team back and fired up. I'm going to go with the Buffs winning this one, and I'll go 35-31.
Okay. Personally, I think I would be shocked if Washington State scores less than 40 points, so I'm going to go over that. I do think Colorado stays in this game, though. Steven Montez, we've seen it throughout his career. He's a bounce-back type of player. Yeah. I'd be very surprised if he I know his last trip out to Pullman didn't go very well, but after last week, I'd be surprised if he doesn't bounce back. So I'm going to say Washington State 48-41. The spread, it's about 13.5 out in Las Vegas, so about a 2-touchdown underdog in this game. But you start looking the second half of the season for them to go to a bowl game. They got to go 3-3. Yeah. They're going to have to win a game like this, not necessarily specifically this game, but a game like this to even have that as a realistic goal coming down the stretch.
I think the next 2 weeks are the key to the whole season for the Buffs. So I like their chances against UCLA and Stanford in a few weeks. I think you got to get one of these next two against Washington State or USC to really have a shot at that bowl game. And yeah, I mean, historically that's not good. They haven't done well in Pullman. They've never beaten USC. So yeah, I'm going to go that they get the one this week. You think I should go more points?
I think so, a little bit, but
should I go 45,
it's your prediction,
41?
It's not mine.
Let's go 45-41. Okay. As I was saying, I'm like, okay, that's the under. I'm not sure that it goes under. Let's go 45-41.
Okay.
I do think the Buffs win, though.
So you're going to get a little fishing in out there in Spokane, huh?
I hope so.
What's up there, trout?
There's some trout, yeah. Last time I was out there, that was the one good thing. It was a miserable trip for the Buffs, but I did fish along the Spokane River and caught some nice-sized trout, so hoping to do that on Friday.
All right, sounds good. We'll be back in Pullman with post-game analysis.